challenges demand new leadership. And if you elect me, my government will put into action a plan for Canada that builds a strong economy and secures our borders. Our plan will work because it's built on the values of Quebec and Canada, the values of community.
One of the strengths that I bring to this leadership race is I'm already a member of Parliament. If I am chosen as the next leader of the Liberal Party, I will be able to stand up in the front benches, on the government side, in the House of Commons, and speak for the government and speak for Canada.
Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney, two of the contenders for the federal leadership race. The other two, obviously, Frank Baylis and Karina Gould. In just 2 days, the Liberal Party of Canada will have itself a new leader who is expected to be sworn in as Prime Minister within a matter of days after that. So how quickly will that leader launch the country into a federal election? And how will the outgoing Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, be remembered? Our front bench is back to tackle all of that. Sabrina Grover, Gary Keller, and Gurritan Singh. Sabrina, maybe first on that first point, how quickly do you think we're going to be heading into an election, given the state of what we're dealing with right now, Canada-U.S. relations, and the country as well, when you consider that Parliament is supposed to return on the 24th of March?
Well, just off the hop, I'll say that I am supporting Karina Gould, who, like Ms. Freeland, has an advantage of also being a member of Parliament. I think that there's a lot of different challenges that this new leader is going to have to manage subsequently, all at the same time. Everything happens all at once or nothing at all. And so obviously the first one is going to be navigating going back to the House or calling an election immediately. I think it is in the interest of the Liberals from a political perspective to go into an election. Number one, you've got the momentum that has been built across the country with grassroots volunteers, with this leadership campaigns, but you also want to, think about spending and writ spending and how that plays out when you actually go into an election. So managing that's going to be one piece, but also bringing the party back together. I think that this hasn't been a particularly fracturing leadership race. We haven't seen a lot of low blows or internal fighting happening, but I still think that once you get out of a leadership race, talking to Liberals, talking to grassroots, bringing those people back into the fray and making sure that everybody is ready and united to go forward is an important point. And then third, I think despite Donald Trump potentially being the ballot question, whether the election is now or in October, affordability still remains a concern. And so you need candidates and the leader to be talking about affordability, because as much as we talk about Donald Trump on this show and, amongst ourselves, when you talk to the average voter, affordability is still a problem for them.
Gary, how important is it that we sort of solve this issue of Parliament coming back and trying to get a mandate, especially considering the climate, as I said? I mean, Doug Ford took a gamble, worked out for him, but obviously when you consider where the polls are right now, Liberals seemingly climbing back into it.
Well, I think in a lot of ways, the end of this race is good for Canadians, and I think it's good. I think Conservatives also want to see an end to this race because it will bring clarity. Instead of this, circus kind of going over here, who's up, who's down, we're going to have clarity. We're going to have a very clear black and white vision of whose vision is best for the country. I think it'll bring clarity, too, because I do think we will have clarity in short order on when the next election is going to be. I think it's going to be before the House of Commons comes back, because I don't understand why Mr. Carney would bring the House of Commons back so he can sit in the gallery. If he wins, to sit in the gallery and be beaten up every day by Pierre Poilievre in question period when he can't respond. So I think in a lot of ways there's the clarity is desired by all sides in this contest, and I think that the election will come sooner rather than later, and I think Conservatives would be happy to have that battle.
Yeah, Gurritan, what do you think?
I think we all agree. It's two things. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion. I think anything can happen on a leadership day, but it seems pretty clear that this is Carney's to win. And beyond that, I think he'll be calling it as soon as possible. But what I think is really interesting to see is that we always see that whenever Liberals choose a new leader, that they get this bump in the polls. If they choose someone who, as we on the left like to say, someone who talks progressive but generally doesn't govern progressive, but at least has positioned itself as a progressive, they often maintain that big bump that they'll get. But when they go towards, and we can look at past examples like Ignatieff or Dion, when they go to more of the center right, kind of policies, we see that bump often goes away. We know that Carney has gone far more right for the Liberals. On his launch, he talked with the far left. He wants to cut services. He wants to cut a lot of the things that we rely on right now. So I'm really curious to see. I think he'll go quick, but I'm interested that how the electorate will respond to his pretty right-wing positions that he's taking right now, and if that progressive vote will ultimately leave that bump that he's got, if that bump will reduce.
Okay, we're going to take a look. We've got 3 minutes now. We're going to take a look back at Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his legacy, so to speak. Angus Reid put together some numbers on this one, did some polling. Have a look at this first one. How will Trudeau go down in history? I don't know that he wants to look at this one right now, but only 5% of people say that he was outstanding. 21% say above average. Average, 26%. Below average, 15%. Poor, 32%, and 1% don't really know. I think the next one is all the more interesting. Trudeau's biggest accomplishments, and this is net assessments of key policies. Marijuana legalization tops it with plus 26, expanding social safety net, plus 22. Then, of course, response to Ukraine-Russia conflict and the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as promoting equality, and that rounded out. We've got 2 minutes left, so we're going to have to make it quick. Sabrina, give me your assessment on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and looking at those numbers.
I think it's always tough for any outgoing leader in the immediate aftermath of them leaving government. I think that history will reflect positively on Justin Trudeau. He managed one of the biggest crises our country's ever seen through COVID-19 really, really well. He managed his caucus for over 9 years through 2 very difficult years internally. And I think he's handled Donald Trump impeccably over the last 6 months or 4 months, whatever it's been. And I think that it's hard to see that right now, but I think history will reflect positively on the Prime Minister.
Gary, do you think it's going to be like Brian Mulroney, where afterwards everyone will say, "Oh, right, he was this type of person"?
I don't think so. I think he'll go down as one of the more divisive, most partisan prime ministers in Canadian history. I think his record of virtue signaling has negatively impacted the country, and I think people are tired of that. And I think it's ironic to see people who, months or years ago were saying that Canada was a this colonial, racist, genocidal country, are now wrapping themselves in the Canadian flag. I find that very ironic, and I think looking in the future, I think Canadians will reflect and match the same results that came out in that poll today.
Gerdeton, what do you think? You get 30 seconds here.
I'll say it's a tough job, and ultimately he served. The problem that he faces is that Canadians just have experienced so much turmoil over the past decade, and they don't see their lives being better. So I think that's reflected in a lot of the polling that we see today.